You've read this story 100 times, maybe 1,000. Martha working, Mary sitting, Jesus speaking. But what if I told you, you missed the secret hidden in plain sight? Not a moral lesson about busy versus still, not a scolding to try harder, but a battle plan for anxiety, painted in the tears of a woman who thought her worth lived in her work. In Luke 10:38-42, we meet two sisters, Mary and Martha, and in just 5 verses, Jesus reveals a hidden truth for anyone who's ever felt exhausted from doing everything they thought they were supposed to. What if Jesus wasn't shaming Martha's stress? He was exposing anxiety's greatest lie. That voice whispering, if you stop, everything collapses. If you fail, no one will catch you. Your value is what you produce. Here's the truth Martha almost missed, and maybe you have too. Anxiety isn't a sin, it's a signal. And in this story, Jesus hands you the code to disarm it. Jesus was visiting the home of 2 sisters, Martha and Mary, in the town of Bethany. Martha was the host, and she took it seriously. Bread to bake, pitchers to fill, a house to prepare. Meanwhile, Mary just sat at Jesus' feet, quietly, attentively. No multitasking, no panic, just presence. Can you picture that? One sister is in motion, stressed, sweating, spiraling. The other is still, grounded, at peace. If you were there, which one would you be? I'll be honest. I used to read this and think Martha was just dramatic, maybe even rude. But the more I've lived, especially those times when I'm stretched thin, the more I've realized Martha is me, and maybe she's you too. Have you ever felt like you're doing everything right and still feel completely unseen? Like the weight of the world is somehow on your shoulders, even when you're surrounded by people who love you? That's what this story captures. Martha kept going, kept serving, kept stuffing down the frustration until finally she couldn't anymore. She burst in and said, not to Mary, but to Jesus, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work? Tell her to help me. Let's pause there. Have you ever prayed like that? Not the polished, poetic kind, but the raw kind that sounds more like, God, don't you see me struggling? Don't you care? Can you please just make it stop? Because underneath Martha's words isn't pride, it's pain, anxiety, the deep kind, where you feel like your effort is invisible and your spirit is unraveling. Jesus stands, walks to Martha, and kneels to her eye level. He doesn't say, stop being dramatic, or your work doesn't matter. He says her name twice. Martha, Martha. Then he names the truth she's avoiding. You are anxious and troubled about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. I used to read that and think, okay, so Mary wins. Stillness is better than striving. End of story. But then one day, in the middle of my own spiral of stress and pretending to be fine, this verse stopped me. Because Jesus didn't say, you're being dramatic. He didn't say, you need to be more like Mary. He said her name twice, Martha, Martha. And then he named her condition, not her actions, but her heart. You are anxious and troubled. The hidden truth? This wasn't about chores. It was about anxiety dressed up as responsibility. And Jesus wasn't rebuking her. He was inviting her back to peace. Jesus wasn't rejecting Martha's effort. He was revealing something deeper. Even good things can make us anxious when we forget what matters most. The one thing being present with Him, not as a task to check off, not as a sermon to analyze, but as a person to receive from. Because here's the secret: anxiety can't survive in the presence of unrushed love. It starves when you realize you are not what you produce, you are not what you fix, you are already seen. Maybe you're not hosting Jesus in your living room, but maybe you're spinning in 1,000 directions, trying to hold it all together for your family, your work, your faith. And inside, you feel what Martha felt: anxious, invisible, alone. But Jesus sees you not as a failure, not as a burden, but as someone worthy of peace. He's not saying, try harder. He's saying, come closer, because peace isn't something you perform for. It's something you sit down and receive. If you felt anxious and troubled about many things, you're not alone. Martha's story is yours too. When anxiety screams inside you, do what Jesus did. 1. Name it aloud. Say, this is anxiety. This is not forever. 2. Ground yourself. Touch something solid, your chair, your knees. 3. Then be still and breathe. Inhale for 4. Exhale for 6. Slower than your panic wants. Martha thought she should do it all, but Jesus said, Mary chose better. When your brain says, I should stay in this toxic situation, reframe it to, I'm choosing peace for today. Leave a comment below. Lord, I want to sit at your feet today. And if this spoke to you, watch our next video. When God let Elijah break down under a tree to see how even prophets have panic attacks and how God responds.